Hello, everybody, and welcome to the High Return Real Estate Show. I'm here with my amazing and handsome and successful business partner, Mr. Jack Gibson. How you doing, Jack?
Good. What do you want?
I'm just paying you a compliment, brother.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I got to tell you, I am super excited about today's episode because we have a gentleman on here who's considered an old dog like myself. We just discovered that our birth dates are only a couple of years apart. So he's a man named Bill Manacero, and he's the host and top dog of the Old Dog REI Network, which is the blog and weekly podcast for people 50 years old and older who are using real estate investing as a means to fund their retirement years, create legacies for their kids and grandkids. And Bill's goal is to own and control 1,000 units or doors in less than 6 years. So a very ambitious goal. Really excited about having a great conversation with Bill. And we will kick it off in just a minute. Welcome to the High Return Real Estate Show, the podcast for heavy hitters. 2 men, 1 mission. It's time to build your empire. Welcome back, everybody. We're here at the High Return Real Estate Show with our guest, Bill Manacero. Bill, welcome.
Well, it's great to be here, Jack and Chick. You guys are awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you. I know we've got a ton of really great questions for you. And just so we don't really talk over each other, I'm going to kind of let Jack drive the boat on this one and kind of be the primary question asker and let him just do his thing. But if you're ready to rock, we got a ton of questions for you.
You know, this is going off to a good start, Shecky. I mean, you're complimenting me. Bill's telling us we're awesome. I mean, I'm already feeling good. My self-esteem is an all-time high. So thanks, guys.
Okay,
good. Good. Yeah, that's what matters, right?
Yeah.
Well, Bill, it's really exciting to have you on, and I know that a lot of our listeners are probably in this boat, 50 and older. I mean, this is certainly a prime demographic for those who have accumulated cash and now are really looking for a great way to deploy it and create a comfortable retirement. So tell us a little bit about your background. You know, how did you get into real estate? And you know, I know you've got a storied past, like some of the things you've been able to do as a missionary, pretty impressive. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, sure. I grew up in Southern California, one of the baby boomer generation here through the 60s, 70s, and still remember most of it. And, got into, actually started in banking, as my first kind of serious job, and kind of worked my way up the ranks. And by age of 21, I was a vice president for a savings and loan here in Southern California. And kind of, I was in the corporate world and definitely had fun doing it. But I was kind of getting the itch to do something that I could control a little bit differently, a little better, and started consulting and moved into my own little practice. I'd specialized in marketing, so that's kind of where I ended up. I started my own advertising and public relations agency. I worked with, celebrities here in Southern California. Also, I worked with a lot of businesses. Did all kinds of things. Moved into launching the Infinity division of Nissan Motor Corp, and also, worked with companies like Nike and NutraSweet and so forth. And after that, I was getting, enjoying it, having a great time. And, things started changing in my life, and I started looking, well, what kind of a difference am I really making? And I started looking at, other types of things that I might want to get involved with. I kind of felt the call into the mission field. And I said, gee, this this is something I'm not really sure about doing, but I'm going to do it. But I'm just going to get involved with one more company, and I got involved in a new internet startup here. It was a startup that Meg Whitman was on the board of directors from eBay, and just a real heavyweight team. And I thought, okay, this I can do. I can go there and I can work for a year, and I can take my options here and not have to worry about ever asking for money if I go out in the mission field, right? Because I could just live off my stock options,
Sure.
And of course, it was kind of a deal I made with God kind of deal, where, okay, God, just give me 1 year with this company. And exactly 1 year from the date that I made that deal with God, the internet bubble bursted, and everything, all my stock options were worth absolutely nothing.
Wow.
And it was at that point that I said, okay, God, I'm ready to do it your way. What do you want? And he basically just said, your trust isn't going to be in that money sitting in the bank. It's going to be in me. So we stepped out in faith, sold everything we had, gave away everything. And our call was to Haiti, Port-au-Prince, Haiti. I got my whole family, and we got on a plane with 16 Rubbermaid little bins that basically contained everything we had left in our lives from everything we'd given away or sold. And we went in the mission field and served in Haiti for 12 years, working with street kids, abandoned and orphaned children out there. And in that process, I'm over there. It was the hardest time of my life. It's kind of like the Charles Dickens, the best of times, the worst of times,
Sure.
And it was a very difficult time, but I'll tell you, it's one of the best in my life. And even though we had malaria and dengue fever and attempted kidnappings and all kinds of crazy things that happened during that time. Earthquake, we were there when the major earthquake happened in Haiti, and a lot of things, hurricanes and so forth. And we're getting near we're getting older, and we're there, and my kids are growing up, and they're starting to move back to the States, and we're just kind of figuring out, should we stay here or not? And we didn't want to abandon the things that we had set up, so we found some other folks to take care of things, and we were able to start planning to go back to the States. And in that process, I'm I am approaching 60, and I have a little IRA that I set up way back when, and it had done well in the stock market and so forth. But I'm going, I just don't think I'm going to be able to really live, on this. And so I was started, like a lot of people do, I started to look at, oh my gosh, I got to retire, or at least I'm close to retirement. What am I going to do? So I started looking at all these options. I had started businesses. I knew I could do something, and or I could just put on a blue vest and go work at Walmart. There was going to be something I knew I could find that I could do. It might not be as glamorous, but so I was trying online businesses and experimented with various things while I was in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And while we were there, I actually got this online business going where it's kind of a resale drop ship type business on, where you kind of sell on eBay and get most of your stuff from Amazon. And so I was, doing real well there. And then, we got so busy and doing so much business. It was kind of hard to do some of the things we were doing still while we were in Haiti. And we ran into some problems. Our suppliers were running out of things, and all you need is 3 bad reviews and they kick you off of eBay as a seller. And sure enough, I got my 3 bad reviews. We had a supplier that couldn't meet the needs, even though we'd get online and say, here's your money back. And it still didn't matter. We got kind of through that whole idea, that retirement approach out the door. So I happened to get an unexpected unexpected inheritance check. And I was already in the stock market. In fact, I was getting kind of scared about the market because, it was kind of in a volatile time at that point. And I said, well, I got to do something with this money. I just don't, want to hold on to it here. So I looked around and I said, let me diversify here. What can I go into? And I had some friends that were real estate investors. And I said, well, maybe I'll just, buy a couple of rental properties and just make that part of my portfolio. And in that process, I, did my homework, started researching. I read Kiyosaki's book and, kind of got in this mode of real estate investing. This is kind of cool. So I hopped on a plane from Port-au-Prince to Atlanta, Georgia. I bought a property there. I hopped on another plane to Memphis, bought 2 more properties there. And then I flew back to Port-au-Prince. And the next month, all of a sudden, boom, money's appearing in my account. These are turnkey properties.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was going, wow, that was easy. This is this is really could be fun. And so we're planning our trip back. We fly back to the States. I'm looking at my options here, and I'm saying, I don't really know what I'm going to do. Am I going to walk around with my resume at 60 years of age and really, get any kind of a job? And or do I try to start something? So I just looked at real estate investing and go, this is kind of nice. And it looks like if I could grow this could not only take care of us in our retirement years, but it could also help support our activities in Haiti. And that's where I came up with 1,000 units in 6 years. And started buying more properties. Bought a property in Indianapolis where Shecky is, and then I took the properties I had, did cash out refi, borrowed against them to buy a 22 unit, also in Indianapolis, and basically that got me on my way. And now we're looking for 100 plus units, and the goal, like I said, is 1,000 units, hopefully by 2020. Lord willing here. So that's the story. That's where I am now, and it kind of evolved as I was doing this. I was encountering a lot of other people that were my age that were faced with the same dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know this, but like 50% of baby boomers, when you look at their retirement savings, don't have more than like $10,000. So there's a lot of people that are in this spot where they're not ready for retirement. And some are already in retirement and they're living on Social Security, and they're realizing this is, I can barely survive on this. So I started sharing this with a lot of my friends that were asking me, hey, tell me about your real estate. And it started as a blog, and then it evolved into a podcast. And, now we're talking to seniors all around the world that are faced with this dilemma of, how to not only survive, but thrive in their retirement years.
So, Bill, what do you do in those situations? What kind of advice do you give to those seniors that, they don't really have that much capital to get involved in real estate? How much are you kind of advising them that they need to get started in investing? And, what does that look like? I mean, if I'm thinking of myself, if I'm talking to somebody who has $10,000, I wouldn't know what to tell them to do.
Well, it's really interesting. It's different with each person. There's some people that have that nest egg, and they're just concerned that it won't last, or they're not going to get the returns on it that they could get, that'll be able to maintain their retirement lifestyle. So it varies. And then it varies to a person who this morning, I got an email from somebody that said, I have very little money, and I'm retired, or I'm moving into retirement, and I'm concerned about how I can survive. And, it was a person that was pretty flexible in terms of, what they would do and how they would do it. And this was the advice for this person was basically, you don't have much. You really don't have much to get started. So the average person, if they're earning Social Security, it's somewhere around $1,400, which isn't a lot either to live on. So I first thing I did is I turned them on to the fact that there's free land in the U.S. if you're willing to move to those locales. There's still land that is free. Cities that are giving away, a nice size piece of land if you will agree to live on that land. And so I turned them on to this, and I actually did a whole podcast on it. And in that podcast, I highlighted, I think, anywhere from 8 to 10 places around the U.S. where you can get free land. So, okay, so you move to wherever it is, Nebraska or wherever this place is that this land is. Okay, now sometimes they have, it's just bare land, and other times there might be some sort of dwelling on it, but it's a place that really has to be fixed up or something. And then there's online auction sites where you can also buy property for as low as a minimum $1 bid. And you can go to these places and find, the same thing. You can find land for super, super cheap, and sometimes there's a dwelling on it as well. Now, if you buy the land, or if you get the free land, for example, and you don't have the dwelling on it, you can buy a used trailer. I'm talking about people that don't mind living simply, right? But if you can get a used trailer from, for $300, $400 just to get started, that might be an idea just to, okay, now I'm living on this land. I got $1,400 a month. I can survive. Okay. But surviving to me, is that the way you want to spend the rest of your retirement? So we expanded the discussion a little bit further into, okay, maybe you want a little bit more of a house. So we talked about tiny houses, and you can buy these houses actually on Amazon, and they'll ship it free to you, and you can put this house together, and it's a little house. It's like a trailer, but it's a little nicer than a trailer, and it's got everything you need in it. It's got heating and a little kitchen and everything, and it's really tiny. But you could put this on your free land, right? And then you could buy another one, okay? And they're not that much. It depends on all the bells and whistles you want on it, but it's not a lot of money. You could buy one for under $10,000. You could probably buy one under $5,000. And you buy two of them, okay? But let's say one of them you live in, and the other one you may set up as an Airbnb. Now, some of the hottest Airbnb houses out there are these tiny houses. And I cited one in Atlanta, Georgia, that is right now one of the top Airbnb houses. It rents out for $275 a night. Okay. So now, not only do you have a place to live for virtually nothing, but now you've got an income source coming in. Okay. So you're able to look at this and as a source of income. How many nights do you need, to supplement your $1,400 a month? Now granted, you're not going to get every place isn't going to pull in $275, but even if you're getting $50 a night, for a place that's completely contained, and then in this process, of course, he's learning about land and buying the land. So now he knows how to acquire land for nothing or through auctions. Now he can actually start looking at taking some of this excess income that he's getting and maybe flipping land. I talked about flipping land, how this is a hot way right now to, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Land Geek. There's a guy out there that basically he started as an investment banker, and a friend of his talked to him about land flipping, and he goes, land flipping? He started getting into it. Anyway, the income that he started making flipping land surpassed what he made as a New York investment banker. And so there's so many different options out there in real estate. You can do just the standard thing like I'm doing, is buying rental properties and leveraging them to buy more rental properties and growing that and I buy all of mine out of state. So I have property managers running them, and I have very little involvement with the process. I just have to oversee my property managers, and it's a passive income source for you where you can get a steady stream of income.
So, Bill, why are you buying out of state? You're in Southern California. I know the answer to this question.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'll talk to you about the 22 unit I bought in Indianapolis. Okay, I bought it for $350,000. Mm-hmm. I cannot buy a home or a trailer in the city I live in right now for $350,000. No, I can't.
You really can't.
I can't even buy a one-bedroom home.
Right.
That's how crazy Southern Cal is, and most of California is pretty crazy. So for me, I can get a lot more bang for my buck buying in other states, and I also look for emerging markets too, because I think you should buy for cash flow first, but after that, you've got to have an equity play there, and so buy in a market where the values are going up, and then that allows you to borrow against that house sooner than later to be able to buy your next house or next property.
Are you buying in cash and then refinancing on the back end, or what's your play?
That's how I started off. I started off with cash. I bought my first 3 properties with cash, and then I went to those properties. I did a cash out refi to get the down payment for the 22 unit, and now I've built up equity in those properties again, so I can do another cash out refi. And plus we did a value add play with our apartments, so that we did a lot of renovation, a lot of things to improve the building. We've increased rents, we've decreased expenses, and this property in a year and a half's time has almost doubled in value.
Wow.
So now we're able to take equity out of that to buy another property.
Quick question. I mean, I'm feeling what you're saying, obviously, being of the same generation as you. And it's interesting to me how, we're all feeling the pressure. There's not that much time left. We want to make our mark on the world, but we also, do want to live nicely and comfortably in our senior years. And, your concept of emerging markets is really intriguing to me. And so I'm just kind of curious, if you were to, I know you're not investing in 50 different states right now, but what would you say right now for yourself you have found to be the top, 3, 4, 5 emerging markets where you can see some of that appreciation and being able to accelerate that cash out refi process a little bit faster? Because, as seniors look at this, obviously that acceleration could be key for them.
Yeah, no, I believe that too. If I could have bought in my own backyard, I would have. If I lived in Indianapolis, I'd be buying there. I think it's definitely better to be close to yours. Now, in my case, it's actually been better because they're not nearby. I tend to not be as active. But even I know if it was in my own backyard, I'd be over there every day, looking to make sure it's okay and everything's all right. And it wouldn't be that passive income source anymore. I'd find something to do. Oh, I better fix this, or I better do that. Or, I just kind of know myself too well. But ideally, it's best to buy in your market. If you've got a market like Indianapolis, there's a ton of good markets out there. And when I talk about an emerging market, just real quickly here, you're looking for all these key factors. If you look at real estate and its growth and the prices of homes, it looks like a camel's back, and it goes up, though it keeps going up and keeps, ultimately real estate's always going up. But it does have its lulls and it has its peaks, right? So you have that little bell curve, right? At the top of the bell, you don't want to buy at the top of the bell and then have that go down on you, and you're losing, value in that home. And so that you have to be really careful on that. So you look at what are the characteristics of something that's at the bottom of the bell that's going to rise up, and then you sell it close to the top. So there's some, what they say, meat on the bone, right? So that another investor might want to benefit from it, but you get to ride that curve up. And so you're looking for markets where you've got significant employment growth. Okay, so the unemployment rate is significantly low and has been over a period of years. You've got population growth in that area. You've got some sort of significant development that's going on now, whether they're buildings that are going up or cities, things that are happening in that area that are creating jobs, that are creating things to attract people to that community. And to be able to get in early on that, so that you can ride that up as it continues to grow, and there is an increase in average income. There's an increase in the rental rates, in housing prices, and so forth. So you're looking at having all those right factors there. So your question to me was what areas, what cities are meet those qualifications. And we're always looking. We're always researching. We're always looking at places. There are lists that are published all the time from people, every year by Forbes and a lot of others that talk about the top real estate investing markets. And sometimes you look at those and we'll compare it with, or do our own independent research and see if this is in the area that we're looking at. And we're looking at multifamily. We're looking at places where people rent apartments. But for example, you may have a place that is going up in value, and people are renting homes at such a cheap rate that more people are renting homes than want to go into apartments, and yet the prices are competing with each other. So, if I had a choice, I'd rent a house, right, as opposed to a 3-bedroom apartment. So you have to look at all those factors, and so we're looking, I would say, and it does change. It changes from year to year. When I first started researching, it was Atlanta and Memphis really stood out as key areas. Later on, I looked at Indianapolis, and I was really, really fortunate because I thought there's also markets that are sort of slow and steady, which are good for cash flow, really good for cash flow, and they're just they're increasing, but it's it's a real modest increase over a period of time, and that's how I initially invested in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't anticipate is that it would start to boom like it's booming right now, and the crazy thing about Indianapolis is there is an abundance of jobs right now, and so a lot of people are coming there. People are coming down from Chicago. They're coming from all over the country to this little town, which is just amazing. And I bought in 2016. I bought a duplex, and that duplex I got for $50,000, and it was at that time there were two bedroom units on either side, and it was pulling in about I think it's $550 a side. And so I went in there. I did very little rehab to it, just kind of upgraded it a little bit, cleaned it up, the wood floors and so forth. And, I was able to increase it to $650 a side really quickly. And the property today, and here it is, okay, the middle part of 2018 is, and again, I look at different things. There's the Zillow estimates. There's a lot of other types of outside online types of estimates that you can get without a formal appraisal. But they're ranging from anywhere from 175 to 225 for the value of a property of that type in that area. And I happened to buy in an area called Bates Hendricks, which it was one of those areas that just took off. And this is happening in cities around the country where these areas near downtown are just going crazy because the millennials are coming in there and they want to be in a place where they can ride their bike to work. They've got student loans, so they don't want a lot of expenses. So that, they try to get close to where they work. And this is a phenomenon that's happening all over the place. And they're building up these downtown areas to make them real trendy and real cool for that audience.
Yeah, we just had a conversation, interestingly, about a property in our team meeting the other day that we are currently rehabbing and going to be selling to investors. That's like 4 blocks from Bates Hendricks. So we're even seeing some of the ripple effect of these, this huge gentrification in certain areas near downtowns, but it starts spreading. It's almost like a cancer in a good way that spreads, because you start saying, well, I can't afford to be in Bates Hendricks, but I can buy something 4 blocks away that still has some nice architectural value, wood floors, whatever. And then, the churn just kind of keeps happening. So yeah, we're seeing a ton of that in Indianapolis, and it's fun. It's pretty exciting to do that.
Yeah. Just a note to all of our listeners too. We did not bring Bill on the podcast to validate our position in Indianapolis. I had no idea that you even invested in Indianapolis before we even, started this podcast. So just for all the listeners, authentically speaking, he is validating what we're doing and the product that we're offering, but we didn't know that going in. So interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I literally found out, just before we started this podcast that you were in Indianapolis.
But it makes sense. We're both, we're seeing the same thing. I mean,
and that has no reflection on the funds that you guys are giving me as a donation to my, my charity either. I mean, it really doesn't have any link whatsoever.
Right.
So just kidding. But not really.
So I'm guessing, the 1,000-unit goal, probably part of that is to help fund your Haiti project. I think you hinted at that, but why 1,000 units? I mean, that's a very, very ambitious goal, and not doubting you in any way, just wanting to know the underlying, thought process, mindset behind that?
Well, it's one, and I think I'm a little crazy, and that's part of it,
Okay, that's good.
because
We need that.
because I'm looking at it too, kind of going, seriously, no. But the if I don't set my goal high, I don't try, and so I'm very driven by this, and it's kind of exciting because one thing about moving into this the 60s, right, and I'm not talking about living in the 60s, they're two different things, but no, moving into the 60 years of age and older is that a lot of times people just kind of kick back and you start just shutting down. I've worked all my life, I'm retired, I want to relax. But I'm just like totally pumped learning this area. I knew nothing about real estate investing, just a few years ago, and now I'm just like I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it, and it's a little bit crazy, but the idea is to reach this goal, and then I can kick back a little bit more, and enjoy a lot more, travel more with my wife, and visit my kids, and do things that I want to do as well. So from that standpoint, I want to have an end goal here, and then the other part of it, it is, I would say, the majority of the funds that we'll probably make will go to our efforts in Haiti, because we don't need that. We don't need that much money to be happy, and we're going to be fine. But if I don't make the 1,000 in 6 years, I'll probably extend it a year. I don't know. It's a tough market. I set this goal thinking that the market would be like it was 4 or 5 years ago, and it's a lot more competitive out there. So,
Right.
so we're having to do a lot more direct to seller type stuff, and direct mail and things like that to try to get the deals out there, because it is super competitive. I didn't anticipate that, but I don't care. I'm still moving forward.
That's great. So why did you launch your Old Dog REI network and your podcast? What was behind that? And your congrats, 200 episodes in. That's pretty fantastic. So you've been doing some real heavy lifting there on the consistency part of that game. So that's great.
I think that's part of being crazy. This is not something I planned by any means at all. And it was somebody actually advised me to do this, because I already had a blog. I just started off emailing, friends and telling them what I was doing. And then they started asking me these real detailed questions, like, well, tell me about the financing and how you positioned yourself for that financing, and and I'm going, oh my goodness. And I'd send that same email to somebody else. I'd cut and paste and send it to someone else. And that's when I started blogging. I said, look, I'm going to start taking all these questions you guys are giving me, I'm going to start putting in my blog. And then another person told me to do the podcast. I go, podcast, man, I don't even have a voice for that. I mean, I have a face for podcasting, but especially if I don't move into YouTube, but, going into, I say, too many times. And I guess if you were listening to this podcast, you probably count, how many times I said, so I'm working on it. But, it did help, because I was able to broaden this out to a lot of people that didn't want to read some lengthy blog. And, so it's been a blast, actually. And I've got to meet the most interesting people, and some people that I probably wouldn't have been able to reach otherwise, except to invite them as a guest on my show.
So how long do you see that, when people start investing, how long are they taking to start generating, positive cash flow?
Well, I mean, just taking my own example, I started with turnkey. Now, I'm not generally a turnkey guy, but I started with turnkey, and literally the next month after I bought those properties, I was receiving income. Mm-hmm. So it depends on how you do it. And that's a great thing about rental properties. Now, there's a lot of different types of real estate investing. We all know, I think from REITs to buying deeds and liens and on, and flipping and you name it. But with rental property, you literally can buy that property. And if you already have somebody that, for example, a renter there, that next month you're going to get your first check. So it can come back to you really quickly. So I would say that's probably one of the great advantages. You can start to generate pretty quickly. Now, if you are going to take a more hands-on approach, and you're buying a place, you have to fix it up, you got to rehab it. You guys probably know more about that, it sounds like, and actually going in there and getting it at an auction or a really discounted price. I talked to a guy I had on my show just it was just this week, and he bought a house in Indy. It's funny, we're talking all about Indy here, as if that's the only place to invest. But anyway, he bought a place in Indy for $5,000, and $5,000. Okay, and he's rehabbing it though for like 20 or 30,000. But by the end of it, he's going to have a home worth over 100 and something thousand. And if you're going to do that, that's going to take a little bit more time. And so you're going to have to tie up your cash for a while before that place is rentable. So it just depends on your approach. And I tend to look for properties that either already have tenants or are very close to having tenants, that I don't have to wait that time, because cash flow is king here for this old dog.
Sure. Yeah, we really have worked hard at putting our systems and processes in place so that we're delivering a product where it truly is, turnkey, rent ready, or tenants in place. And it just, a lot of people don't want to wait that, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Some can take longer, really, if you run into challenges on the rehab process. So they want to get they want to get paid like yesterday, when they buy. So we started realizing that we're just going to fix them up, and when they're ready, and not before they're ready, then our investors will be able to, take them on. And like you said, when you bought your first 3, the check started hitting next month. That gets you excited, right? Then you want to,
Really?
The rent bug hits, you want to get more. So
that's true.
So, Shecky, I just kind of wrapping up. Do you have any other questions for Bill that you'd like to fire away?
Just a couple of comments, not necessarily questions, but I want to point out, and I want to say thank you, Bill, because, as a guy who's almost exactly your age, and there's a lot of listeners on your show and on our show too of that generation, you brought up something when we first started talking just about, staying young and all that other kind of stuff, or being older and crazy. But the perspective that I get from you, which, by the way, I share with you, I think that there's a danger when you start hitting that age where you're feeling like close to retirement, whatever you want to call it, baby boomer, where you start saying to yourself, money isn't everything. And you start getting into this area of complacency and into a situation where, you're settling. And the way that I'm made, and clearly the way that you're made, is not that way. Like, I just got to say, it's so freaking awesome that you've set a goal for yourself of 1,000 properties, not because you need all of that money to live on, but because of the amazing, great things that you do in the world, right? And the good that you can do out there. And Jack will attest to this too, because obviously being business partners, in a sense, it's like a marriage, and we know each other very, very well. And he knows that I very much share that sentiment. It's like, look, I don't need the huge mansion or the million fancy cars. I want to make a lot of money. I don't make any bones about that, but I want to do it because I have other motivations, taking care of an ailing mother, lots of other places where that money can do a whole lot of good out there in the world. So what I'm saying is to all of these senior type listeners, that's something that you really want to keep in the forefront. Like, what kind of goals you're setting. And it also leads me into kind of the other component of this too. It's like Jack and my company, we're less than 2 years old. So I went into this partnership, just prior to turning 60. And dude, I feel like a kid, like I'm just getting started. Right. And so being able to set an ambitious goal and work on something that's bigger than yourself, I can assure you, more than any other thing that you will do, that is the secret to staying young. That's great. That's great. So I just tell you, I feel you, brother. And I really appreciate the perspective from which you come.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Bill. So, wow, incredible. You're doing some great things. You can just tell you've got a real passion to help other people, and that is using real estate as a means to that end. It's a wonderful thing. You're making the world a better place, and that's really ultimately, that's the goal, I think, for any business. My opinion is to make people's lives better, and the degree that you do that, then I think in turn you will be blessed tenfold. So I'm really impressed with what you're doing, and just thank you. And just wanted to give you an opportunity to tell the listeners how to get in touch with you. What's the best way to get in touch with you, and how do they, what is the title or name of your podcast if they'd like to search and subscribe?
Well, sure. Well, thanks guys for having me on. It's been great meeting you, and I definitely want to see you guys on our show. So I want other people to hear some of the neat things that you guys are doing as well. And so yeah, the best way to reach me is through our website. It's Old Dawgs, spelled DAWGS. Okay, so we got that kind of a hip kind of hip, 60-year-olds. We can still rap, right?
Stay young.
Yeah. Okay, so Old Dawgs, REI, and that's for real estate investors, right? REI Network.com. And on there, you have links to our, all the articles. We write articles every week. We've got our podcast, and you can listen to it there, or you can listen on iTunes or Stitcher or HRRE or Spotify or whatever it is. You'll be able to find it out there, and it's just called the Old Dawgs REI Network podcast.
And just FYI, we will make sure that we put those links in the show notes, because obviously there's always a link to this podcast on our website as well. So, for any of our listeners, those links will appear, and if you want to go check out the stuff that Bill is up to, which is really amazing. So yeah, thank you again, brother. Really appreciate you.
All right.
No, it's just great. It's great meeting you, and I'm honored to be your guest here.
All right. Thanks so much, Bill. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening today. And we will be back next week with another episode. Stay tuned. Make it a great week, and good luck with everybody's investing. If you need any help, just make sure to continue listening to these types of podcasts so you can educate yourself and educate your mind to be able to set yourself up for success. So with that, Shecky, thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.